Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right in today to completely shatter this persistent myth that ancient childbirth was just some chaotic, unassisted gamble in the wild. We're actually going to look at the highly sophisticated, incredibly specialized systems that quite literally kept our entire species alive.
So I want you to picture this. Imagine you are 9 months pregnant, but it's 50,000 years ago. Obviously, there's no hospital, there are no painkillers, no modern doctors to page. It's just you, your tribe, and arguably the most dangerous moment of your life. What happened in those prehistoric moments is exactly why half of human history is currently just missing from our textbooks.
Because let's face it, human birth is uniquely dangerous. When our ancestors started walking upright, our pelvises fundamentally narrowed. You combine that with our evolving, increasingly large brains, and you've got a massive anatomical challenge. Without any intervention, an estimated 1 in 3 women historically died in childbirth. I mean, think about that. That is a staggering evolutionary bottleneck.
But to combat this, our ancestors didn't just cross their fingers and hope for the best. They developed a brilliant social system known as cooperative breeding. Basically, the moment a woman realized she was pregnant, she became the protected center of this incredibly intricate support network. Older, experienced women in the tribe stepped right in. They took over her physical labor, they shared their food, and they made absolutely sure she was primed for survival.
Which brings us to Section 1, the first medical professionals.
You see, this collective survival strategy gave rise to a highly specialized role that actually predates civilization itself, the ancient midwife. And the archaeological record brilliantly backs this up with physical proof. We're talking about burial sites from 100,000 years ago where infants were laid to rest with immense reverence and care. By 50,000 years ago, we actually find Neanderthal skeletal remains showing very specific joint wear, injuries consistent with years of intense kneeling to support laboring women. And jump to 40,000 years ago, we see distinct birthing clearings in Africa and Europe. These women weren't just helpful bystanders, they were true medical specialists.
Let's look a bit closer at Section 2, Specialized Ancient Techniques.
When labor kicked off, the tribe didn't panic. They executed a meticulously prepared protocol. They would relocate to a specific prepared clearing with soft ground. There, a highly coordinated team of 3 to 5 women basically took charge. One managed the actual delivery. Another provided intense physical support by physically holding the mother's weight, while the rest managed warm water, medicinal tools, and even kept watch for predators.
Now, a crucial part of their specialized knowledge was positioning. You know the modern standard of lying on your back to give birth? That is actually a very modern hospital invention, mostly just for the doctor's convenience. Ancient midwives knew better. They utilized squatting, kneeling, or standing positions. They actively guided the baby's descent with their hands to prevent tearing, and they let gravity do a massive amount of the heavy lifting.
And what if things went wrong? Well, these midwives had refined, generation-spanning knowledge for emergencies. The evidence shows they knew exactly how to reach inside to manually turn a breech baby. They expertly cut and tied umbilical cords using sterile stone tools. They knew how to apply direct pressure to stop deadly hemorrhaging, and they even utilized specific techniques to clear airways and revive infants who weren't breathing right away.
To back that up, researchers have identified over 50 specific plant species used by indigenous cultures worldwide during childbirth. And these weren't just placebos. These plants contain real, measurable pharmacological compounds that were actively used to induce labor, manage pain, and stop bleeding.
And right after the birth, their expertise continued. Take delayed cord clamping. Instead of severing the cord immediately, ancient midwives waited for the umbilical cord to completely stop pulsing. This allowed all that vital, nutrient-rich blood to transfer from the placenta directly into the baby. It's honestly mind-blowing when you realize this life-saving technique was only rediscovered and widely recommended by modern medicine in the 1990s. Ancient midwives were doing this 50,000 years ago.
Okay, moving to Section 3, the power of community care. Because the care absolutely did not stop once the baby arrived. Immediately after birth, they ensured skin-to-skin contact. The midwives would carefully examine the delivered placenta, knowing full well that any retained tissue could cause a fatal infection. And then, the mother was given weeks of protected rest. We see this worldwide historically, from the Hadza people in Tanzania to the ancient Chinese practice of zuyedzi. The tribe essentially took over all the food gathering and childcare, so the mother could simply heal and nurse her baby.
The stark contrast with our modern system is just fascinating to think about. Today, hospitals often isolate laboring women in these sterile rooms, surrounded by rotating shifts of staff who are total strangers. But the ancient model? It was the exact opposite. Women labored in familiar places, completely surrounded and literally held by lifelong, trusted specialists who knew them deeply.
Which leads us to Section 4, Rediscovering Ancient Birth Wisdom.
Astonishingly rigorous modern science is finally validating this ancient system. Look at this data from a massive 2017 study published in the journal Birth. They analyzed over 15,000 births and found that having continuous emotional and physical support from another woman, literally exactly what ancient midwives provided, resulted in labors that were 25% shorter, alongside significantly fewer medical interventions.
And thanks to this intense support network, modern studies of hunter-gatherer groups reveal something pretty incredible. When ancient births progressed normally without severe anatomical complications, the maternal and infant survival rates were shockingly comparable to those in modern industrial nations today. Simply put, the system worked.
So let's wrap things up in Section 5, the unbroken chain.
You're probably wondering, if this system was so wildly successful, why is this brilliant medical history completely missing from our modern understanding? Well, it's mostly because this vast knowledge existed almost entirely as an oral tradition. It was passed down intimately through demonstration and apprenticeship. Because it was considered the women's domain, early civilizations rarely bothered to write it down. And then, the rapid forces of colonization and industrialization swept in and severely disrupted these indigenous networks, practically erasing tens of thousands of years of expertise in just a few short generations.
Yet brilliant fragments of this knowledge absolutely still remain. Take the Aka people in Central Africa. In 2019, anthropologists documented their modern midwives actively using the exact same upright positioning, physical support structures, and plant medicines that perfectly mirror the archaeological evidence we find from 40,000 years ago. It is a literal, unbroken chain of human knowledge.
There's a quote that captures this perfectly. Evolution didn't just shape our bodies for birth. It shaped our social structures around it. Ancient women survived the most dangerous moments of their lives not because they were somehow physically tougher than we are today, but because they built communities that caught them when they were most vulnerable.
Which leaves us with a fascinating and honestly deeply profound thought to end on today. As modern medicine continues to rediscover the incredible benefits of things like doulas, upright labor positioning, and continuous community support, what other ancient, life-saving knowledge is just waiting out there to be reclaimed? Thanks for joining